All right, I have a new Substack essay out that is sort of a sequel to the other essay that I wrote, I think it was last week or the week before, a few thoughts on God, death, and the afterlife. And so whereas in that essay, I took the point of view starting with God and the angels and descending down through ascended masters, spirit guides, down to human souls, and then finally to incarnation into an embryo, with the planets weaving their energies into the embryo. And then the essay after that came in down onto the earthly plane to deal with the sex drive and sexuality and why we watch porn, which generates new bodies and new souls, which is the function of sex on the physical plane, not on the astral plane, but on the physical plane, that's its function. And then, so now in this essay, what I want to detail then is what happens to the soul after death and as it ascends up into the upper worlds. And so I'm not just making all this up out of my imagination. This is based on years of research with, first of all, near-death studies, reading Raymond Moody's books, the guy who came up with the term in the 1970s, studying the various accounts of near-death experiences on YouTube. And there's quite a lot of them. And when you reflect and compare on them, they pretty much describe the same experience. So everybody's having pretty much the same experience. And also reading the writings of Rudolf Steiner and Sri Aurobindo, both of whom have karma and reincarnation, and then also my various conversations with mediums. That in particular has been quite illuminating. And then as well reading professional academics like Raymond Moody or Brian L. Weiss, who was a Yale University graduate psychiatrist who sort of stumbled on reincarnation as the result of dealing with one of his patients. So what I'm trying to do is to put all these bits and pieces together and try to create a coherent cosmology. Undoubtedly, I've gotten some things wrong. Nobody gets everything right. Even Rudolf Steiner got things wrong. But undoubtedly, I've gotten stuff right. I'm sure there's quite a bit that I've gotten right. So I'll read the first couple of paragraphs here. What Happens After Death, Part 1, The Soul's Ascent. And I've chosen a Hieronymus Bosch painting here, which I think is really good. He somehow intuited the tunnel of light, which is the moon portal, as Steiner refers to it, and as I refer to it in this essay. So, in the previous essay entitled A Few Thoughts About God, Death, and the Afterlife, we have already looked at the hierarchies of spiritual beings on the other side, beginning with God and the angels, and then going down ultimately to the human soul's incarnation into an embryo. There we saw how the planets weave their karmic energies into the embryo's etheric body during the 270 days or so in which it is developing in the womb. Just as we saw that the soul enters the embryo once the heart begins to beat after about 3 weeks, so now the soul leaves the physical body at the moment the heart stops beating. Once it has left the body, the soul finds itself hovering above it and looking down. There comes an immediate realization that one has now died, and very soon after, a portal begins to open, which enables the soul to cross through interdimensional planes to get to the other side. This first plane corresponds to the sphere of the moon, which has to do with karma. The soul is composed of 3 subtle bodies: an etheric body, which animates plants, and indeed all living things have etheric bodies; an astral body, which gives waking consciousness to animals; and the individual human ego. Now, this is Rudolf Steiner's model, which I, of course, have borrowed here, but I think that it's correct. I interviewed Rudolf Steiner using a medium and asked him if he thought that model was correct, and he said, yes, actually it is. Once he's on the other side, then he can confirm it. Because you can sort of intuit it in a certain way. If you think of, there's a dead body, something is not there which was there, okay? And so what was the thing that was there that isn't there now? Now it's returned to the mineralogical world. It's just pure physical body. What was there, of course, was a soul that was animating it. And you can say, too, then, so you have to have an etheric body, which is one of the components of the soul that animates every living thing, starting with plants, and I guess with bacteria now even, since there are 5 kingdoms now. And think of a sleeping body. So a person's asleep and just lying there. It's alive because it has an etheric body keeping it alive. But something was there that isn't there now. Well, that's the astral body. The astral body gives waking consciousness to all animals. Plants don't have astral bodies. They don't dream. They just experience the joy of being there-ness. Let's say what Spengler calls, not Heidegger, but what Spengler calls Dasein, as opposed to Wachsein, being versus waking being. Okay, and then so I've written here, the etheric body now separates out from these other two and begins the process of disintegrating over the course of about 3 days. The etheric body contains one's karma and also one's memories, and so now begins what in ancient Egypt was called the judgment of the dead, and which we now call the life review. In the West, this idea was first put forth by Rudolf Steiner, but it wasn't concretely proven until enough people who had had what Raymond Moody called near-death experiences claimed that it was indeed the first thing they went through once they crossed over. So if Steiner got that right, he probably got a lot more right than just that. The soul now sees its life spread out before it panoramically. A spirit guide attends to help the soul review its life, specifically looking to see how it has treated other people. Was it with love, compassion, and forgiveness, or with anger, hatred, and aggression? The soul is itself its own judge and may be satisfied or disappointed with its performance on the physical plane. All right, I'll leave it there. For those of you who want to read the rest of the essay, it costs $5 a month to sign up to my Substack, or $80 per year. I also do private astrology readings for those interested. Hit me up at johndavidebert@gmail.com. I also do private tutoring in difficult works of philosophy for those who are interested. And subscriptions to my Patreon are always very much appreciated. Okay, thank you.